R. Kelly asks U.S. Supreme Court to overturn sex convictions. You can't try me for a law passed after the fact. R. Kelly's attorney, Jennifer Bonjean, came on TMZ Live Tuesday to discuss her client's SCOTUS filing in more depth, and she made a pretty compelling argument. One other interesting thing. Bonjean says she actually thinks this current version of the Supreme Court is perfect to hear R. Kelly's case, and it sounds like believes they'd actually side with him if they were to take it up on their docket. Politics be damned. R. Kelly is asking the United States Supreme Court to throw out his convictions for possession of child porn and inducing minors to have sex, claiming his alleged acts occurred decades ago, and the charges were therefore barred by the statute of limitations. Here's the deal. When R. Kelly was accused in 2020 of possessing child pornography and engaging in sexual acts with underage girls way back in the mid to late 1990s, he argued the statute of limitations had already run its course. But, prosecutors argued a 2003 law, called the PROTECT Act, made the statute of limitations indefinite for child sex crimes. Basically, Kelly's attorney, Jennifer Bonjean, argues that because the conduct for which Kelly's now serving time occurred in the 90s but the PROTECT Act wasn't passed until 2003, the Act's expanded statute of limitations doesn't apply to the charges against him. The PROTECT Act extends the statute of limitations indefinitely for alleged crimes committed after the law went into effect in 2003, but Congress specifically didn't include a clause allowing the law to be applied to alleged conduct committed before 2003. You'll recall, Kelly was convicted of 6 of 13 counts back in 2023 for child pornography and 3 for inducement counts. He received a 20-year sentence and was ordered to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages to his alleged victims. The Supreme Court will decide in the next few months whether to hear Kelly's appeal.
R. Kelly wants the U.S. Supreme Court to hear his appeal, basically, that says my conviction in Illinois should be overturned. And the reason is they charged me for under a law that didn't exist when I committed the crimes, as they say.
Did this come up during the trial?
Yes, we raised this issue pre-trial, and it was denied. The government's position is that they admit that they applied a statute of limitations that did not exist at the time the conduct was allegedly committed, but they're saying we were permitted to extend it. It didn't harm him. It didn't violate what is known as the ex post facto clause. And our position is not so fast. The lawmakers, Congress, passed a law that was intended to apply prospectively. So when they extended the statute of limitations, they didn't say, oh, you can apply it to cases that existed or the conduct happened before this. But moving forward, we're going to extend the statute of limitations. So what we're saying is, when they did that, they were not permitted to apply it to conduct that occurred in the 1990s. The government has to interpret these statutes as they were intended to be applied, and they're taking great liberties with it, and they did so in this case. The ends justifies the means type of thing. And I think the U.S. Supreme Court will be really interested because this isn't just an R. Kelly issue. This is all about, do we give the government the power to take liberties with statutes that were not intended to apply as they're applying them?
The U.S. Supreme Court is under attack in a very big way. President Biden is going to propose legislation to change the way to change term limits, all sorts of things. There are people talking about packing the court. There are people who want Alito and Thomas removed. They are under fire right now. Do you think that politics will play a part in their decision on whether to hear the case? Because if they hear the case and if they overturn the conviction, there is going to be a torrent of criticism.
Sure, because it's R. Kelly, right? But I like the Supreme Court for this issue, frankly, because the Supreme Court seems to understand that we have a government that's run amok. that we have prosecutors who have run amok. They are taking extraordinary liberties with statutes that were never intended by Congress, exceeding their authority, essentially, in so many different ways. Now, I get it. This particular defendant, they may believe, shouldn't be the beneficiary of it. But again, there are much greater principles at stake. And I hope and I believe that the U.S. Supreme Court can ultimately, they understand what's at stake. And it's not just about R. Kelly, it's about everybody. And do we let the government continue to run amok in these federal prosecutions, whoever the defendant is? And I think the Supreme Court can do that. And I think we have a good chance of getting cert granted.